Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. In the last video I was able to get the frame, the swing arm, and the front forks all painted. I laid down a 2K primer. I did do the color with just a rattle can, and then I did do a 2K clear with my gun and compressor. This was my first time doing something tubular like this, and I did do all three parts at once. I did also do the little kickstand over there. I did have a little bit of solvent pop on this side and the other side of the swing arm. And there's a few bubbles on the bottom of the forks where it gets really thick. So I am going to sand everything down, get it all polished out. I don't expect it to look perfect. I should be able to get all of these parts put back together, and the plan is to hopefully take something else apart and start sanding on that. Stay tuned. Here's a little bit closer up look at this swing arm. You can see all of the little spots there where it kind of just popped. The other side over here did get some too, but it's just very, very light. I just laid these coats on way too thick. After the bubbles did actually come up, I did pop them, and what I did is just mixed up a small batch of clear and just dropped it in there with a toothpick. That way it had something to build up, and I can sand that down and try to polish it. You'll still be able to see that there, but everything will look and feel smooth. Overall though, very, very happy. I really, really like the color. It was supposed to be more of a fluorescent pink. Here's the paint can that I bought. I don't really feel like that matches up with what came out, but you know, you get what you get. Swing arm over here, same thing, just on the bottom, really, really small bubbles. It should just take some light sanding to get all of that smooth and polish it out. This is how they were hanging when I painted it, so all of the excess just kind of dripped to the bottom. I think that's why it just got thicker down here. That top coat dried and that solvent just couldn't escape. Surprisingly enough, the frame actually came out the best. I didn't have any problems. There was just a couple of little spots on the inside here. All of this came out looking really nice. All of the tube work and all of this on the back side came out really, really nice. The only thing that sucks about all of this coming out really nice is most of this is going to be hidden. Plan from here is just to go ahead and start putting everything back together. I'll get as much as I can actually put back onto this piece, like the foot pegs, kickstand, everything that's inside of here. And then I'd like to also go ahead and get all of these sanded, everything polished out, and then hopefully get everything put back together on these. And once I've got all of these parts put back together, I can start working on something else over here. Not decided just yet. I'd really like to go ahead and start working on the wheels. I'm probably going to do the handlebars along with those. The other option is doing the plastics over here, but I'm thinking about saving that for last. Either way, I don't have to decide on that right now. I'm going to go ahead and start working on these parts. I'm going to start on the swing arm over here first. I'm going to start sanding these big bubbles down and get everything polished out. And after I've got all these pieces sanded down and polished out, I can start putting it all back together. Frame and swing arm are all put back together. For the most part, everything went on pretty smooth. Because I didn't tape off some of these areas where it connects in really tight, it did scrape off some of that paint right in there. You saw I had to use my little rubber mallet to actually kind of get it in place. Aside from that, everything went on pretty smoothly. I did get some new foot pegs. I did not reuse the old ones. They were really rusted. The hardware was really rusted, and these things are pretty cheap online. The shock fit right into place, no problems. Caliper went on with no issues. Kickstand bolted right up. However, getting the spring on was pretty difficult. Tried stretching this thing with some pliers, but this thing has a lot of tension on it. Ended up just having to use a rope with a wrench through it to actually get some leverage on it. And I had Brittany kind of push up on the top, so I wasn't putting a whole lot of pressure on all of this. Still took a lot of effort to stretch that thing, but I was able to get it over that. As far as the sanding and polishing goes, you can still kind of see where the spots are at. Everything still looks really smooth. Everything's shiny. It's all nice and flat. Same thing with the other side over here. There was a little bit of solvent pop, so you can see a little bit of white areas. It's just where those little bitty tiny micro craters are at. I could keep sanding on it and try to polish it out, but I have learned my lesson in the past and I end up burning through, and I don't want to do that. I still think it looks really good. It's something you only notice when you're up really close. Super happy to have the swing arm and the frame done. However, with the forks over here, I did start sanding all of the small spots. Got everything knocked down exactly how I wanted it. I was ready to polish it all out, and then I noticed some runs on the back. This is actually the front of the fork, so this is what you would actually see. So I wanted to sand those runs down. They were really bad, and as you can see, I burned through. Went ahead and sanded everything smooth down the rest of the way. That way I can just go ahead and recoat it. Not going to be doing that in this video though. I still have to repaint this piece over here. Had some big runs in the base coat, had to sand them down. Finish sanding these down later on. I'll hit them with some base coat, and then I'll be able to lay down some more clear. As far as the sanding process, if anyone is curious, I've had this little Tolcut system for a few years now. I've used up pretty much all the papers that it comes with. But these blocks are really handy because of how small they are. This 1500 grit, this green paper is really good. However, what I don't like about it is it does leave deep scratches sometimes. So whenever you go to your 2000, you really need to make sure that you get over everywhere. I've done this before. It looks good. I move on to my other 2000, my foam disc, and then my 3000 I'll polish. And when I get it in the light, I see some deep scratches still. For these little spots though, all I did was just hit it with 2000. I hit it with my compound, and then I went ahead and finished it off with some polish. The forks, I'm not going to be finishing those up in this video. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the wheels, because at least once I can get these completed, everything else can go back on. This thing will actually be rideable once the front end is finished. And then all I'll have to worry about is the plastics. I'm going to start with the tires. I'll get those taken off with the tubes, and then I'll take the rotors off. I'll get the sprocket taken off, and then I can start taking all of these spokes out. Wheels and tires are all completely taken apart. Tires are pretty easy getting off. I've gotten used to taking them off to replace the tubes. All I can suggest there is just getting a nice set of tire spoons. This is actually a couple of sets that I bought over the years. Once the tires and tubes are out, front wheel is pretty easy. I did pull off the rim tape from the inside. I bought new rim tape for both wheels. For the front, you just have to remove the front rotor for the brake. These 6 bolts, it comes right off. I did knock the bearings out. I'm going to go ahead and replace the bearings also. To get the bearings out, I go the old school method of just a screwdriver. Here's the center pin that sits down in there. If you've never done it before, you just have to push it off to one side or the other. Stick a flathead screwdriver down in there and just hit it from all sides. Eventually it'll knock the other side out. You can pull the pin out from the other side and then you can knock the other side out with just a socket. If you do it this way, you usually have to replace the bearings because that screwdriver is going to tear at least one of them up. After that, it's just taking all the spokes out. Ignore these 2 pieces. This is from the old chain. I'm going to replace the chain on here. After the spokes come out, front wheel is done. For the rear wheel, however, it's a little bit different. Everything is the same as far as removing the rotor and removing the bearings. Pin that's in the center of the rear one is a little bit longer. And once the rotor and bearings are out, flip it over, and then you have this FreeWheel that sits on here. Not really familiar with these things. I didn't realize that this had to come off. Didn't even realize what this was. All of my motorized bikes do not have these. You do need a special tool to take these FreeWheels off. This one is actually an 8-tooth, but the one I ordered to replace this, because this one is not very good anymore, is a 4-tooth. So I went ahead and ordered the 4-tooth tool. It can take off any of them. I will say this though, I tried using a ratchet and it was just too difficult. Once I threw the big boy impact on there and put it on the highest setting, it worked perfectly. But this thing just spins right off of there with that. And you do have this little C-clamp that sits on there. I do have some snap ring pliers. I didn't think it was going to work because it doesn't stretch it that far. It does stretch it just far enough for you to be able to wiggle it and just kind of pop it off of there. The last thing that comes off is this little piece behind there. I am going to clean this up before I put it back on. This is just what allows the outside sprocket to attach. After that, same thing as the front wheel. Just got to pull all the spokes out and it's finished. Now that all the wheels are completely taken apart, it's time for the necessary and tedious process of sanding everything down. The only things that I plan on painting are these inner hubs and then the outer rims. I'm hoping to actually keep all of the factory spokes. However, I do plan on replacing the nipples. Not sure if I'm going to do the inner hubs or the outer rims just yet, but I'm going to get everything sanded down, and then once we're finished with that, it should be ready for paint. Rims and hubs are completely sanded down. You can see here there's no more shiny spots on it. For the most part, I just used my regular 320 grit sandpaper. Same thing with the rims, just used the 320 all over the place. Got as much of that scratched up and scuffed up as I could. And then for all those areas that are really hard to get to, I just used my Maroon scuff pad. Everything is good to go though. Everything is ready for paint now. Not going to be painting these in this video. That'll be for the next one. Super excited to have these ready to go. I can't wait to get these wheels painted. Also very, very excited to have all of this over here back together. Once the wheels are done, I can finish up all of this back here. And once the front end over here is finished, I can get the front wheel back on. This thing should be rideable at that point. And then all I'll have left to do is the plastics. Really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. If you want to see everything else going on with the channel, see everything else get painted, hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys next time.